And we're back. Our final guests for this get-together today, Jimmy Adams and Tonya Blansett. Blansett. I'm so sorry. I experienced some names earlier that I just am still warped on, but I'll get them. I'll get them down. And you're with the Tulsa Air and Space Museum.
Correct.
Big happenings, big doings.
It's a big year.
Because we may have a Warthog.
We do have a Warthog. We do own it. So now we're just in the process of demilitarizing it. There's some parts that have to be removed, and then we have to remove the wings, load it on a truck, and then bring it to Tulsa, reassemble it, and paint it, and put it on display. So it's a little bit of a process.
Well, question comes, and I know folks out there are going to want to know the answer to this. Why can't they just fly it in?
Well, this particular aircraft is a 78 model. And so after they retired it from active duty service, it went to Shepherd Air Force Base, which in the Air Force world is called the schoolhouse. And that's where the mechanics, A&P mechanics, that's where they learn in the Air Force. And so this aircraft was used for training. And so the engines were removed. And so it's probably been taken apart and put back together hundreds, if not thousands of times by Air Force students. And so that's how we're acquiring it. So it's going to come to its final home. We're in the process of doing the research and tracking down the combat history of this aircraft, and we have found one of the pilots that flew it during Desert Storm. And he has been sharing his logbook and pictures. The aircraft at one point was painted in the dark green camo of the early Desert Storm when the A-10s were brought over from Europe. And so now it's a gray color. We're going to keep it the gray color, but we're really excited because.
Well, you should be.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you what, that was one of the most feared aircraft in the last skirmish we had in Vietnam.
The airplane itself, the entire airplane was built around the gun, and we were laughing in the museum, looking up, research and looking for pictures and stuff, and she came across something that said, "My airplane has a gun." And somebody said, "Yeah, that's cute. My gun has wings."
That should be the quote.
Yeah.
That goes on the front of it. When do you expect delivery?
It's probably going to be 6 to 12 months, anywhere in that time frame. A lot of it just depends on how quickly we can get down to Shepherd with mechanic crew. And there's quite a few hundreds of parts that have to be removed. That they recycle and put in the C models. So it's a process. It could be 6 to 12 months. So.
And Jimmy, I guess the procedure after that, it'll take another, 6 months or so to get it ready just to show to people?
Yeah, there'll be quite a bit into the disassembly. There's, they made it easy to work on in the field, but it's easy for the mechanics that worked on it. It's not going to be easy to find the crew, or maybe research and find a crew of A-10 mechanics that are going to be readily available. So we'll be doing part of the work. The mechanics that did the work in the past, maybe we can get a few of them to help us. But it'll be quite a bit of work getting it apart.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but we have a large body of Vietnam vets living right here.
Yeah.
Some of which might be able to help.
Right, and we have a few contacts for that, and it's such a big industry in the state. Aviation is the second biggest industry in the state. So we have a huge pool of people we can pull from. It's just a matter of getting in contact, getting it scheduled out, getting all the details worked out, and then coming up with the funding. So we actually have a link on our website. That's what we're using to drum up the funding to get this thing up here. It's going to cost quite a bit. And so there's a link on our website for how people can contribute to that, donate to that event, and basically just work together as a community to get the plane up to Tulsa.
I just found out just before we started that the current director of NASA was a former director of the Air and Space Museum. Am I getting that right?
Well, he's no longer the NASA administrator. He's now has a private company, but the 13th NASA administrator was Jim Bridenstine, and Jim was a previous director at the museum.
Also served as a congressman.
Yes, congressman.
Out of the 1st District. What's traffic like for you guys out there? I've been out I don't know how many times, and everything changes, and it's marvelous what you've done and what you're doing. But the educational value of it is astounding.
Right. That's the whole purpose of a museum in the beginning is the education. You know, what I mentioned about it being the second biggest industry. You want to educate the public as much as possible. You know, I was a high school aviation teacher before I came to the museum, and I was drilling into those students' heads, this is where you're going to find work. You know, I fell into it. I've been a huge aviation enthusiast my entire life, but I fell into the work industry on accident because there's so much of it out there. And so I was telling these kids, you know, the airframe and power plant, that license is a good living. You know, you go get your certifications, you can make a good living working on airplanes, and there's lots of jobs out there. And so part of educating them is not just, you know, this is a job, but, you know, getting them into an airplane where they can fly the airplane and experience it and pilot the airplane a little bit like on a discovery flight. Even if they don't want to be a pilot, it's very exciting to do that. You know, I had one student, he got out of the plane after his discovery flight and he fell flat on the ground. He just couldn't believe he got into a plane and flew it. And, you know, he's not interested in being a pilot, but it's exciting. You know, you're trying to reach these kids at a young age because that's where it's really going to sink in that it's an important thing for them to learn about.
Our biggest enemy is time, on this show is time, and we are out of it. I want to thank both of you for coming in. And will you please throw a rock over here and let us know when that thing is almost here?
Absolutely.
We'd love to get some pictures.
Yeah.
Well, and we have the first female commander, Eileen Collins, coming to the museum on September 18th.
Wow.
And she flew 4 missions, and she was the first female pilot and the first female commander. And so she's going to be coming to the museum to do screenings of her new documentary, Space Woman.
Will you all come back?
Absolutely.
Yeah, love
Well, want you as a team, okay?
to. All right.
All right, thank you very much. That's all the time we have for this edition of Perspectives. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back here next time.